Hey, what's going on guys? It's ETA Prime back here again. Today I finally got my hands on the Up Squared, or as I like to call it, the Upboard 2. This is a small x86 single board computer. Well, the kit I got sort of makes it like a NUC. It's a little bigger than the Raspberry Pi or the Upboard 1, but it's got a lot more power to it. I actually managed to get the Up Squared Pentium 4GB 32GB pack off their website. It's $289. It's a bit steep, but I really wanted to test this out, and I've been waiting months to get my hands on one. So they don't advertise this as a gaming machine, but my very first video here, I'm going to be testing some Steam games and some emulation here. And then later on in my other videos, I want to test out some other things that this board can do. I will be testing the Android operating system and Ubuntu, but right now I have Windows 10 Pro installed, so I'll be testing that first off. So since this is an x86 CPU, it's actually the N4200 Pentium processor. It goes up to 2.5 GHz. They did include a massive heatsink for a small single board computer. Without diving too deep on the other ports on this board, I just want to show you some of the basic stuff that this comes with. We have our power jack, and the included power supply is 5 volt 6 amps. There's a total of 3 USB 3.0 ports, 2 are on this side. We also have a display port, HDMI, and 2 gigabit Ethernet ports. Here's the other USB 3.0 port, and it also comes with a 40-pin GPIO header, just like the Raspberry Pi. It's pinned out just like the Pi 3. It also has an M.2 slot, a mini PCI Express X1, and we also have the ability to connect a SATA hard drive. This is a 6 gigabit connection here, so you can get some pretty good results with a 7200 RPM spinner, or even an SSD. I went ahead and pulled the included heatsink off just so we could take a look at that CPU. This is the Intel Pentium 4200. It is a quad-core CPU, and it does turbo up to 2.5 GHz. The kit I got actually came with another heatsink with an included fan. All of the tests you're going to see in this video, I did use the heatsink with the fan. Here's a quick comparison of the Upboard, the regular first generation Upboard versus the Up Squared. As you can see, the Upboard is a lot smaller. I do have the bottom half of the included case on the Up Squared, but it doesn't make it that much bigger. I'm going to do a quick rundown on some specs that are included with the Up Squared, but there's a lot more to this board than just the specs you're seeing here on screen. I'm going to leave a link to their website down below. There's a lot more that I haven't listed. For the CPU, we have a quad-core Intel Pentium N4200. It will turbo up to 2.5 GHz. They do offer another configuration with the Celeron, but I opted for the Intel Pentium. This is their highest end, except for the RAM. Speaking of RAM, they offer 2, 4, and 8 gigabytes of LPDDR4. I have the 4 gigabyte model. The GPU for the N4200 model is the Intel HD 505. Built-in storage, they offer 16, 32, 64, and 128. Now this is all built into the board using an eMMC module. I have the 32 gigabyte model here. One full-size HDMI 1.4B. This will do 4K at 30 Hz. If you use the display port, it'll do 4K at 60 Hz. 3 USB 3.0 ports, they're full size, and 1 USB 3.0 OTG port. It's a micro B port, so if you have a cable, you can add an extra USB 3.0. There's a USB 2.0 pin header on the board. Now, with the kit I got, it included the connector, and you'll just plug that in and you get 2 extra USB 2.0 ports. 1 full-size 6 gigabit SATA 3 port, 2 gigabit Ethernet ports, 40-pin GPIO, and something I'm really excited about testing out is the Altaira Max 10 Fpga. So I can't find much documentation on the Up Squared with the Altaira Max 10. I can find a lot of information on the Altaira Max 10 Fpga. It's built into the board, but I'm not sure if I can access it while I'm running Windows or if I have to have another host machine connected to this to access the Fpga. I need to find some more documentation on this because I really want to do some experiments with this field programmable gate array. Like I mentioned, there's a lot more to this board than what I just went over, so I'm going to leave links to their website so you can go check this out and see if it's something that you could use. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and test the performance of the CPU and GPU. I'm going to be testing some Steam games and some emulators. Let's move over to Windows 10 Pro now. Alright, so I got the operating system installed, I got everything booted up, all the drivers installed. Now there is one issue that I'm having here. I'm having some problems with sound in different applications. I'm not sure if it's due to the driver provided by Up, or if I just have something configured wrong. Either way, some of the tests you're about to see will not have sound. I just cannot get it working, like in Skyrim or the Dolphin emulator. First up, we're going to be testing Skyrim. I have this downloaded through Steam, I have it installed, and it's actually running from an external USB 3.0 1TB drive. Let's go ahead and get it started up. First, I'm going to start up I'm not going to use fraps, I'm actually going to use Afterburner so we can see the FPS, the temperature, and the CPU usage. I'm going to load this up and then we'll start Skyrim. I have everything on low and it's set to 720p. So I am using the heatsink that is actively cooled, the heatsink with the fan, and the performance is really good at 720p. If you take a look up in the left hand corner, you will see some monitors going on. Now the GPU is not being displayed because it's built-in Intel HD GPU. I do have memory, CPU temp, RAM, and the FPS. I definitely suggest picking up a fan or the actively cooled heatsink because my daughter was playing this earlier. I had it inside of the case with the stock heatsink, and this is the temperature it reached while she was playing. 101 degrees Celsius, and this was after about 10 minutes of gameplay. So this thing does get pretty hot. I know Skyrim's an older game, but I still love to see if these little mini PCs can play it, and this does a pretty good job. We're above 30 FPS, and in my opinion, 30 FPS is a good sweet spot for this game. I have no performance mods or tweaks installed on this game. This is just set on low at 720p, so there is a possibility you could get 60 FPS if you tweaked around with it. But I think it's doing a pretty good job with Skyrim here. I wish I could have found a fix for the sound issue I'm having here. I believe it's the up driver. Some stuff is just not working, and that's how it's been since I installed Windows. I did try a few suggestions from Google, but nothing worked. There's not much information on the up squared right now. Now it's time to test another Steam game. This is Rocket League. I have everything on low and set at 720p. I do not normally play this game. I only bought it to test it on these small single board computers, so I suck. Let's check it out. And again with this, at least we're above 30 FPS. I mean, I know this is not ideal to play online, but there's a lot of stuff going on and I think it's handling it pretty well. Now it's time to test some emulation. I'm going to be using Dolphin. This will emulate GameCube or Wii games. In this video, I'm just testing some GameCube stuff. And again, I'm not getting any sound right now, but when I first installed it, Dolphin did work with sound. Skyrim didn't, but Dolphin did. It's so weird because I've changed everything in here. I just can't get it to work correctly. First game I'm going to test is Soulcalibur 2 for GameCube. The FPS is listed in the top left-hand corner. I've tested a lot of Atom CPUs, a lot of Celeron CPUs with Dolphin, and I can't get anything to work as well as this Pentium N4200 does. It's not perfect by any means, but I have tested a few other GameCube games and they run almost flawlessly, like Super Mario Sunshine and Mario Kart. I will show you a snippet of Mario Kart at the end here, but first I wanted to show you this. This is kind of my go-to test game. It's not bad at all for the type of hardware we're running it on right now. Next up, we got Burnout 2. FPS is still in the top left-hand corner. This should be running at 60 FPS. If you aren't watching the FPS, as long as this didn't go under 50, you won't feel it at all. I'm actually pretty impressed with the N4200 and what it's doing here. And the final game I tested was Mario Kart Double Dash. Really nice. This is definitely playable here. Almost constantly pegged at 60 FPS. Like I mentioned, I did test Super Mario Sunshine. That game runs at 30 and it runs perfectly on this board. You will run into some games that don't run well at all. I did test Smash Brothers. The first level worked fine, but then I got to the Ice Climber stage and it went all the way down to about 25 FPS. But overall, I think this little CPU is doing a great job for what it is. Next up, we got some Psp emulation going on using PPSSPP. First game, God of War, Chains of Olympus. FPS will be listed in the top right-hand corner. It's just really something about this game. It doesn't do well on a lot of systems, and this is one of those it doesn't do well on. I have the resolution at 2x in the PPSSPP emulator. We should be at 60, but we're not. I'm going to bring it down to 1x and see if that helps. I don't think it will. But we'll back out, go to settings, go to 1x, and we'll start the game again. Definitely didn't help at all. If you've ever messed around with the Psp emulator on Android or pretty much any system, God of War Chains of Olympus, Midnight Club Dub Edition, and Tekken 6 are 3 of the hardest games to emulate, so those 3 games might not run well on here. Next up, we got Need for Speed Shift. Runs pretty decently. I know you can't see the FPS too well up there, but this game originally ran at 30 FPS on the PSP. We do have a little bit of choppiness here and there, but overall, it's doing a decent job, and I actually went back to 2x resolution because it just makes it look a lot better. I wanted to try a 2D game on the Sp emulator, so I went with Super Street Fighter Alpha 3. Runs perfectly. 60 FPS, very smooth. The final emulator I'm going to be testing in this video is Null DC. I did try Delmu, but I couldn't get the sound to work correctly. Null DC is one of my favorite Dreamcast emulators. It is older, but it does work really well. First game is Marvel vs. Capcom 2. FPS is listed in the top left-hand corner. As you can see, steady 60 FPS. I do have the screen stretched out. You can go to 4.3 aspect ratio. I'll show you that in the next game I test. Here is Soulcalibur 2. There are some graphical glitches up in the life bars, as you can see. I do have borders on. This is the original 4.3 aspect ratio. I had it stretched for Marvel vs. Capcom 2, but I think this looks a lot better. Overall, the up square does handle Null DC pretty well. Alright guys, so I'm really impressed with the Pentium N4200 in the up squared. This is a decent little board here. I wanted to do my first video and just test the performance of the GPU and CPU, so I ran some games. My next videos, I'm going to be testing some other stuff like video playback, some photo editing, maybe even some video editing, and then I'm going to move on to Android and Ubuntu. But I really want to get to that Fpga and see what I can do with that. I really appreciate you guys watching. I can't really give my first thoughts just yet. I haven't had the board that long, but if you want to check out the website, I will leave links down below. Like always, thanks for watching.